So the first panelist we'll be able to hear from to answer this question, we will go with the representative at Hindu Speakers Bureau.
Namaste.
Namaste.
It is an honor to share the perspective of Hinduism, referred to as Sanatan Dharma. And on this topic, it's very fascinating that these scriptures that are rooted in Hinduism, there's not one single scripture, but rather a library of scriptures. And when I say library, I'm not talking 5 scriptures, I'm talking hundreds of scriptures. And it really is a treasure of knowledge, speaking on every subject, physical as well as metaphysical. How to eat, literally how to eat, how to bathe, as well as how to attain moksha, how to attain the highest level of human height, how to truly attain divinity. And it's also, these scriptures are rooted in talking about how to live in every single way, but as well as its multifaceted approach. So not focused, this is the only way. There are so many different paths one can take. Ultimately, these paths merge into one. So begin anywhere, from here or here, taking any part of the scripture, and it will lead you ultimately through a merging path. And when speaking of the vastness of the scriptures, just one scripture alone, called the Mahabharata, is more than 100,000 verses. It is regarded as the 5th Ved, and it's written actually in a story form versus other scriptures that are written in a far more philosophical form. Now, broadly speaking, these scriptures are divided into 2 categories. One is Shruti, what is heard, and the second is Smruti, what is remembered. Shruti texts have no human author, whereas Smruti texts were often written by a specific sage. Shruti is considered more authoritative than Smruti because the former was heard or revealed from God by spiritual experiences or Vedic seers, and they have no interpretations. Whereas the Smruti texts are designed to help us remember the teachings of Shruti. They are meant to be read and interpreted in light of changing circumstances. So what are the founding scriptures of Hinduism, of Sanatan Dharma? They would be called the Vedas. And the Vedas literally mean knowledge in Sanskrit. And there are 4 primary Vedas: Rig, Sam, Yajur, and Atharva. The 4th part of the Vedas are called the Upanishads, and these texts are more philosophical, and they explore the self, God, and nature of the world. There are more than just that one category, that one type of scripture alone. There's more than 100 different Upanishads. Outside of the Vedas, all other texts are loosely classified as Smruti, what to be remembered. And among the most popular scriptures are the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, which I mentioned, and included within Mahabharata is the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There's the Bhagavad Puran, Manusmriti, which are the laws of ordering society. On top of all of that, there's things that perhaps some of us have become familiar with, which are called Upavedas, which is Ayurveda for medicine, Gandharva Veda for music, dance, dharma. There's Artha Veda for political science, Dhanur Veda for military science, Shilpa Veda for architecture. And then many of us have come across yoga, and even that is a part of the scripture, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So there's a vast variety of scripture. As far as the question of how these scriptures were passed down, essentially these scriptures were, the Shruti, the first type of scripture, was realized. And then it was passed down through memory. And then the latest scriptures was 1200. The latest written record of the scriptures is 1200 BC. But the scriptures alone also reveal that the Ramayana alone is 7,000 years old. And the Vedas are even older than that. Thank you. Thank you again. And I've really enjoyed hearing all of these different perspectives and seeing the merging of how the scriptures all were inspired. They're inspired by God. And I love the analogy, Honorable Mr. Lim, of that all are recorders and with a different pen, revealing to us that knowledge of God. So speaking to that the intention of the Hindu scriptures being inspired by God and saying that there is a library, a whole library that God has given. It's like saying, you know, why doesn't God have the answer to my problems? What am I supposed to do? How can I do this? How can I do that? And the intention is that God is giving us the knowledge, that he's not just given us birth, but he's given us the way to live, and the way to conquer any problem, and to attain the highest of our human potential. And for that, we talked about earlier how there's a vast type of knowledge. So one would need to be physically healthy. And so there's knowledge in the Hindu scriptures on how to live a very robust, healthy life, and how to overcome any ailments yourself, how to be your own doctor. Because if one is in pain, it is very difficult to pray. It is very difficult to think at a higher level. So beginning with the very basics of health to the very heights of philosophical knowledge, which are in the Vedas, to take us on our path. We can begin anywhere we are, and it can take us higher through the very different approaches, as well as the type of content. So I want to speak a little bit about, you know, when we look at the Vedas, they are very high level. But then when we look at Ramayana and the Mahabharata, they are epics in the form of a story. And then when we look at the Puran, it's even more basic, shorter stories. Okay. And then when we look at the Bhagavad Gita, it is a conversation between God and three other people. And where it's a Q&A, it's a question and answer with God himself. And so the idea is pick which one appeals to you and start there to begin your spiritual journey. Another focus of the scripture is to help us live very well in Ihalok, which is the now, as well as in the Paralok, which is in the later, after death. And in Hinduism, there is a core belief in law of karma, as well as in the reincarnation. And so it is not just one life that one needs to be concerned about. It is not just about, it's only one life and I need to have all my enjoyment now, but rather I need to live very well now, but balance it out with how what I do now will affect my future life. And so there's a balance of approach to what the scriptures are guiding us to do. And ultimately, you know, if I was to summarize the goal, who does not want to, you know, when we think about our basic human desires, who does not want to be happy? Who does not want to be successful? So to be, you know, there are very basic, some, you know, there's like, I know in the Bible, there are like the 10 commandments. So in one of the Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad, there is something called the Bodhvachans. There are 8 Bodhvachans, which very simply are 8 simple things that every human, if they do, they will be happy. And all summarized into, you know, when we think about this vast library, all summarized into this very, just 8 things. Do these 8 things and you will be happy. And who does not want to be successful? So the philosophy ultimately will take you to not only being the best human, but also to become even God himself. Now, the question, I've run out of time, so I'm going to leave you with that question. How can a human become God? That the scriptures gave up, the Hindu scriptures give you a path for. But I will leave the question for us for a later time. Thank you so much.